There is a number that runs through the Bible like a hidden thread, and once you start pulling on it, you cannot stop. It shows up on the first page and the last page. It appears in gardens, in floods, in dreams, in laws, in temples, in prophecies, and in visions so vivid they have haunted readers for 2,000 years. The number is 7. And it is not a coincidence that it keeps landing at every turning point in the story. It is a design choice, and when you understand what that design is communicating, the entire Bible starts to feel less like a collection of ancient texts and more like a single unified argument that someone has been building from the very first sentence. So let us walk through it in order. We are going to start at Genesis and work our way forward. And I want you to notice not just how often 7 appears, but where it appears, because the placement of this number is everything. It does not show up in the boring middle sections. It shows up when something is beginning, when something is ending, when a covenant is being made, when a curse is being issued, when a kingdom is rising, or when the whole world is about to change. That pattern is not accidental, and by the end of this video, I think you will see exactly what the biblical writers were doing with it. Let us begin at the very beginning, because that is exactly where the number 7 begins. Genesis chapter 1 is structured in 7 days. You already know this. But I want you to slow down and actually look at the structure, because it is more sophisticated than most people realize. The first 3 days are days of separation and forming. Day 1, light is separated from darkness. Day 2, water is separated from sky. Day 3, land is separated from sea and plants appear. Then the next 3 days are days of filling. Day 4, lights fill the sky, sun and moon and stars. Day 5, birds and fish fill the sky and sea. Day 6, animals and humans fill the land. And then day 7 is not another day of forming or filling. Day 7 is something entirely different. Day 7 is rest. Day 7 is the day God stops and declares everything good, and steps back and lets the creation breathe. Now here is what scholars have noticed about the text of Genesis 1. In the original Hebrew, the first verse has exactly 7 words. The second verse has exactly 14 words, which is 2 times 7. The word God appears 35 times in the creation narrative, which is 5 times 7. The word earth appears 21 times, 3 times 7. The word heaven or sky appears 21 times, 3 times 7. The phrase God saw that it was good appears 7 times. And the 7th day itself is blessed and declared holy. The whole structure is built on 7s, and this is not a coincidence the ancient Hebrews stumbled into. This is the author embedding the number 7 into the very foundation of reality. The 7-day week is not just a schedule. It is a theological statement. It is saying that time itself has a pattern, and that pattern points toward rest, toward completion, toward something that is finished and declared good. And here is the first big idea I want you to hold on to. In the Bible, 7 means completion. It means wholeness. It means something has reached its intended end. This comes directly from the creation week, and everything else the Bible does with the number is an echo of that original meaning. Now we move forward in Genesis, and we hit Lamech, the great-great-great-great-grandson of Cain, and he is a disturbing figure. He kills a man and then he says something chilling. He says if Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech is avenged 77 times. This is the first time 7 appears after the creation week, and notice what it is attached to: escalating violence. The number that was associated with God's perfect completion in chapter 1 is now being used by a murderer to claim divine protection for bloodshed. This is not an accident. The author is showing you something has gone terribly wrong. The 7-fold pattern that was meant to mark creation's goodness is being claimed by human arrogance. Then the flood comes, and 7 appears again, and it appears repeatedly. God tells Noah to take 7 pairs of every clean animal into the ark. 7 days before the rain begins, God issues the final warning. After the rain stops, Noah sends out the dove and waits 7 days, then 7 more days, then 7 more days. The flood narrative is saturated with the number 7, and scholars have argued that the flood story is being structured as a kind of counter-creation and recreation. The world is being unmade and then remade, and the sevenfold structure of the flood mirrors the sevenfold structure of the creation week because that is exactly what it is supposed to be: a new beginning, a second creation, with Noah standing where Adam stood, receiving a new blessing and a new commission. The number 7 is telling you this is a reset, this is a completion and a new beginning all at once. After the flood, we get the Table of Nations, and then we get Babel, and then we get to Abraham, and this is where the 7 start doing something new. God's first speech to Abraham in Genesis 12 contains exactly 7 promises. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. 7 promises. The covenant with Abraham is built on the same structure as the creation week. This is not a coincidence. The author is telling you that the Abrahamic covenant is a new creation moment. Something is beginning here that has the same structural weight as the first week of time. And then Abraham makes a covenant with Abimelech over a well, and he sets apart 7 ewe lambs to seal the agreement. And the place is called Beersheba, which means well of 7, or well of oath. The same word in Hebrew underlies both meanings. To take an oath is to 7 yourself. To swear is to invoke the 7. The connection between 7 and covenant is so deep in Hebrew that the word for oath is literally rooted in the same ground as the word for 7. When you make a 7, you make a sworn promise. When you complete something, you seal it with 7. Jacob and Laban invoke this. Jacob works 7 years for Rachel, and then he is tricked and works 7 more years. 14 years, 2 sevens, to marry the woman he loves. And when Jacob finally flees from Laban and they make a covenant, he sets up a pillar and they share a meal and they invoke God as the witness between them. The whole structure is a covenant, and it follows the sevenfold pattern. Then we get to Joseph, and 7 shows up in one of the most famous dream sequences in all of ancient literature. Pharaoh dreams of 7 fat cows eaten by 7 lean cows, and then 7 healthy heads of grain swallowed by 7 withered heads of grain. Joseph interprets this as 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. 14 years. 2 sevens again. And notice what 7 is doing here. It is not just marking abundance or famine. It is marking a complete cycle, a full turn of fortune. 7 good years is not just a long time. It is a complete unit of blessing. 7 lean years is not just a hard time. It is a complete unit of judgment. The number is telling you these are not random stretches of time. They are designed, bounded, intentional. And Joseph's ability to see the pattern, to read the 7s correctly, is what saves him and saves Egypt and eventually saves his family and sets up the entire Exodus story. Now we come to the law, and in the law, 7 is everywhere. The Sabbath is every 7 days. The sabbatical year is every 7 years when the land must rest. The year of Jubilee comes after 7 times 7 years, the 50th year, when all debts are canceled, all slaves are freed, and all land returns to its original owners. The Jubilee is the completion of completions, 7 sevens, the fullness of fullness. The major festivals of Israel are built on 7s. The Feast of Unleavened Bread lasts 7 days. Pentecost is celebrated 7 weeks after Passover, which is 50 days. 7 sevens plus 1. The Feast of Tabernacles lasts 7 days. The sacrificial system is full of 7s. The priests consecrate themselves over 7 days. Blood is sprinkled 7 times on the Day of Atonement. Altars are dedicated with sacrifices offered over 7 days. Newborn animals must wait 7 days before they can be offered. The 7-fold sprinkling of blood appears again and again in Leviticus, and each time it signals purification, cleansing, a restoration to wholeness. When the Israelites finally reach Canaan, the first major military engagement is Jericho, and the battle plan is entirely built on 7. 7 priests carry 7 trumpets made of ram's horns. They march around the city once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day they march around 7 times, and on the 7th circuit the priests blow the trumpets, and the people shout, and the walls fall down. This story is structured so that the victory is unmistakably a divine gift. The Israelites do not win Jericho by military strategy. They win it by completing a 7-fold pattern, by submitting to the rhythm of divine action. And at the moment of completion, the thing that seemed impossible becomes accomplished. Moving into the period of the Judges and Kings, we find 7 showing up at moments of crisis and restoration. Solomon's Temple, the great project of Israel's Golden Age, takes 7 years to build. The dedication ceremony lasts 7 days, and Solomon offers 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats, and the celebration continues for another 7 days. 14 days in total. When the temple is finally finished and dedicated, the glory of God fills it so completely that the priests cannot even stand to minister. This is the moment the whole story has been building towards since Sinai, the moment God takes up residence among his people. And it happens at the culmination of a 7-fold pattern. Elijah on Mount Carmel prays for rain 7 times before the cloud appears. The servant goes to look toward the sea and comes back 7 times, and on the 7th time there is a cloud the size of a man's hand. And then the rain comes. 7 moments of waiting, 7 moments of looking, and then the completion. Then Naaman the Syrian general washes 7 times in the Jordan River, and his leprosy is healed. He nearly refuses because it seems too simple, too undignified, but when he submits to the 7-fold pattern, the healing is complete. The wisdom literature picks up the theme. Proverbs says that wisdom has hewn 7 pillars in her house. 7 is the number of wisdom's structure, the architecture of understanding. Proverbs also says a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again. 7 falls is not a specific count. It means complete, total, repeated failure. But the point is, the rising. Even through a complete sequence of failure, the righteous person rises. And then there is the famous verse that says the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth. And Zechariah picks this up in his vision of the lampstand with 7 lamps, saying these are the eyes of the Lord that range through the whole earth. 7 eyes. Complete omniscience. Nothing escapes the 7-fold gaze. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the other prophets use 7 in ways that echo the earlier patterns. Isaiah's famous 7-fold Spirit of God in chapter 11, the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of understanding, the Spirit of counsel, the Spirit of knowledge, and the Spirit of the fear of the Lord. 7 aspects of the divine presence that will rest on the coming King. When the Messiah comes, the prophets are saying the complete fullness of God's Spirit will characterize his reign. Daniel's 7s are some of the most debated in all of Scripture. In Daniel 7, 4 great beasts represent 4 kingdoms, and the vision climaxes with the Ancient of Days sitting in judgment. In Daniel 9 comes the famous prophecy of the 70 weeks. The Hebrew literally says 70 sevens, 70 units of 7. This is a time frame given for the completion of transgression, the end of sin, the atoning for iniquity, and the bringing in of everlasting righteousness. Whatever your interpretive framework, and there are many, the point is that history itself is being measured out in 7s. The movement toward the kingdom of God is not random. It is structured. It has a shape, and that shape is 7. Now we get to the New Testament, and 7 does not disappear. If anything, it intensifies. Matthew's Gospel opens with a genealogy that is structured in 3 sets of 14 generations, twice 7 3 times, from Abraham to David, from David to the exile, from the exile to Jesus. Matthew is doing the same thing Genesis 1 did with the creation week. He is embedding 7 into the structure of the story to tell you that what is happening with Jesus is a completion. Abraham began something. David extended it. The exile interrupted it. And now Jesus is arriving at the moment of fullness, the moment when all the 7s point. Jesus is asked by Peter how many times he should forgive his brother. 7 times? Jesus answers not 7 times but 70 times 7 times, or in some translations 77 times. He is reversing Lamech. Remember Lamech, who claimed 77 times vengeance. Jesus is saying the kingdom of God runs on 77 times forgiveness. The same scale of completion that Lamech used for revenge, Jesus claims for mercy. This is one of the most brilliant reversals in the Gospels, and it only works if you remember Lamech back in Genesis 4. Jesus casts out demons, and in one parable he describes an unclean spirit that leaves a man and then returns with 7 other spirits more wicked than itself. And the man's condition becomes worse than before. 7 spirits of evil as a complete, overwhelming invasion. And then there are the 7 signs in John's Gospel: the water turned to wine, the healing of the official's son, the healing of the paralyzed man, the feeding of the 5,000, the walking on water, the healing of the blind man, and the raising of Lazarus. 7 signs, building toward the ultimate sign, the resurrection. John is doing with these 7 miracles what the creation narrative did with 7 days, building toward a rest, a completion, a declaration that everything is now good, now finished. On the cross, Jesus speaks 7 times, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Today you will be with me in paradise. Woman, behold your son. My God, why have you forsaken me? I thirst. It is finished. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." 7 words from the cross. And the last of these, "it is finished," is in Greek the single word, tetelestai, which means completed, accomplished, brought to its full end. The 7th word from the cross is the word completion. The 7 has reached its rest. The early church in Acts has 7 men chosen to serve the widows, the first deacons, and notably one of them is Stephen, who becomes the first martyr. Paul's letters are addressed to 7 churches in the canonical collection of his letters, though this is debated by scholars. And then we come to the book that has more 7s than anything else in the Bible: Revelation, the Apocalypse of John. This is where 7 does not just appear, it becomes the organizing principle of the entire vision. The book opens with a vision of the risen Jesus, standing among 7 golden lampstands, holding 7 stars in his right hand. The 7 lampstands are 7 churches. The 7 stars are 7 angels of those churches. Then come the letters to the 7 churches: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea. 7 communities representing the full spectrum of the Christian experience, from faithful suffering to comfortable compromise. 7 is not just a count of actual churches in the region. It is a signal that these letters address the complete church in the complete range of her conditions. Then John is caught up to heaven, and he sees a scroll sealed with 7 seals. Only the Lamb who was slain is worthy to open it. Each seal reveals a vision, and the first 4 are the famous 4 horsemen: conquest, war, famine, death. The 5th seal reveals the martyrs under the altar crying out for justice. The 6th seal unleashes cosmic upheaval. And before the 7th seal is opened, there is an interlude, a pause, where 144,000 are sealed from every tribe of Israel, 12,000 from each tribe, 12 times 12 times 1,000, and a great multitude from every nation that no one can count. The 7th seal is finally opened, and there is silence in heaven. For about half an hour, silence. After 6 seals of escalating revelation, the 7th seal brings silence. This is the rest of the creation week, the rest of the Sabbath, transported into cosmic apocalypse. Even in the midst of judgment, the 7-fold structure points toward rest, toward completion. Then the silence breaks, and 7 angels are given 7 trumpets. The trumpets are blown one by one, and each one unleashes judgment on the earth. Hail and fire and blood, a burning mountain cast into the sea, a star called wormwood falling on the rivers, darkness covering 1/3 of the sun and moon and stars, demonic locusts from the abyss, an army of 200 million cavalry, and before the 7th trumpet sounds, there is another interlude. A mighty angel stands with one foot on the sea and one on the land, and cries out in a loud voice, and 7 thunders speak. But John is told to seal up what the 7 thunders said, and not write it down. 7 thunders whose content is hidden, sealed away. Even within the sevenfold structure of Revelation, there are sevens within sevens, and some of those inner sevens remain mysteries. The 7th trumpet finally sounds, and voices in heaven proclaim that the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our God and of his Messiah, and he will reign forever and ever. This is the declaration of completion, the announcement that the long arc of the biblical story has reached its end. And then, 7 angels are given 7 bowls full of the wrath of God. The bowls are poured out in sequence, and they echo the plagues of Egypt, the first Exodus replicated and intensified in the final Exodus. Sores on those who bear the mark of the beast. The sea turns to blood. Rivers turn to blood. Scorching heat from the sun. Darkness over the kingdom of the beast. The Euphrates dries up. And then the 7th bowl is poured into the air, and a loud voice from the throne says, "It is done. It is done." The same declaration as the cross. The same completion. The 7th bowl announces that the judgment of the world has reached its full end, just as the 7th word from the cross announced that the atonement for the world had reached its full end. 2 great completions. 2 great sevens. One on a hill outside Jerusalem, one at the end of history. And then Revelation gives us numbers built on 7 for the New Jerusalem. The city is a perfect cube, 12,000 stadia on each side. Its wall is 144 cubits thick, which is 12 times 12. The city has 12 gates and 12 foundations, but the number 7 is still present in the structure. The river of life flows from the throne through the middle of the city, and on each side of the river stands the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And there is no more curse. There is no more night. There is no more need for the sun, because God himself is the light. 7 days. 7 seals. 7 trumpets. 7 bowls. The book ends not with another 7, but with the presence of the one all the 7s have been pointing toward. Now let me pull this together, because I think there is something important that gets missed when people just make a list of all the times 7 appears in the Bible. The point is not simply that the number is there. The point is what the number is doing structurally and theologically. 7 in the Bible is the number of divine completion. It is the signature of God's involvement in an event. When a story unfolds in 7 steps, the author is telling you that God is the one orchestrating this. It is not chance. It is not human planning. The 7-fold structure signals divine authorship. This is why the Israelites march around Jericho 7 times, instead of attacking with ladders and rams. The victory belongs to God. This is why Naaman washes 7 times instead of once or 3 times. The healing is from God. This is why the creation week has 7 days and not 5 or 8. The creation is God's project, complete in God's time, resting in God's character. And because 7 means completion, 6 means incompletion. 6 means almost, but not quite. 6 means striving and falling short. And this is why in Revelation, the number of the beast is 666. Not just 6, but 6 cubed. 6 to the fullest human expression, 3 6s stacked on top of each other. The maximum of human arrogance and power, and it still falls 1 short of 7. It is the number of a man, as Revelation says, which means it is the number of human striving without divine completion. 666 is not evil in some magical sense. It is the number of everything that presents itself as complete, but is not. Everything that claims to be 7, but falls short. There is also the question of why 7 specifically. Why did the biblical writers land on this particular number, rather than 4 or 12 or 10? Part of the answer is historical and cultural. 7 was a sacred number throughout the ancient Near East, and the Israelites were drawing on a symbolic vocabulary that their neighbors would have recognized. But the biblical writers transformed what they borrowed. In Babylon, 7 was associated with the 7 visible celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets visible to the naked eye. In the Bible, 7 is detached from astrology and attached to covenant. It is not about the stars. It is about the relationship between God and His people. The sworn oath, the promised completion, the rest that is coming. And the rest is the key. The 7th day is not just the last day of the creation week. It is the goal of the creation week. God does not make the world in 6 days and then stop because He ran out of things to do. God makes the world in 6 days and enters rest on the 7th day as a declaration that the work is good, finished, sufficient, and that the creation is now invited into that rest with Him. The Sabbath is not a rule about not working. The Sabbath is an invitation to share in God's completed work. And the whole sweep of the biblical story, from Genesis 1 to Revelation 22, is the story of that invitation being extended, rejected, distorted, and finally answered. Every time 7 appears, it is a signal. This moment participates in the pattern that began on the first day of the world. This moment is part of the movement toward the final rest. Whether it is Noah waiting 7 days for the dove to return, or Jacob working 7 years for the woman he loves, or Elijah waiting 7 times for the rain, or the walls of Jericho falling on the 7th circuit, or the temple being dedicated over 7 days, or Jesus speaking 7 times from the cross, or the Lamb opening 7 seals, every single instance of 7 in the Bible is a thread in the same fabric, a repetition of the same theme. A reminder that this universe has a direction, and that direction is toward completion and rest, and the declaration that it is very good. The Bible does not just tell you about a God who made the world. It tells you about a God who is finishing what He started. And the number 7 is how He signs His work.